Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Raj here. Sorry I've not recorded a video in so long, but anyways, today we have something interesting. Today on camera, we are going to be attempting an iPhone 12 Pro battery replacement. Now, I know this is probably out of the ordinary for my content, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys what I could do, and show you that I'm using genuine Apple parts for this. So without further ado, what I got with this nice little kit here that Apple sent me is the battery and screw kit, display adhesive, and some security screws. So that's a bit of a synopsis on what I've got here. There just looks like just some recycled paper there. We can just toss that aside. More recycled paper. Looks like it just got kind of torn up there in the box. That's not a big deal. Okay, so now we have some self-service repair stuff. We just have some paperwork here. Looks like it reads, read the repair manual and repair your device, complete the system configuration, which I probably will have to call the number on there in order to do so, because I will need to reconfigure the battery health once I am done with said repair. And then order returns, Apple limited warranty summary. So it kind of just goes through all of the nice little nitty-gritty stuff there. So I'll just set that paper aside. And then looks like in this package, what we get here in this nice little bubble wrap is some fresh display adhesive. Now, the reason why this is important is because we need this adhesive, this new adhesive, to restore water resistance. Because once this original factory adhesive is compromised, that is basically the end of your water resistance. So right here, we have the display adhesive for the iPhone 12 Pro. So that's kind of just what it looks like there. And they were nice enough to include 2 sets. So I will be able to do another repair just like this for a 12 Pro in the future, in case, say, I needed a second set of adhesive. So I have 2 sets of adhesive. There's also some extra security screws here, which is kind of interesting, actually, that they include these. So, that is kind of a interesting little tidbit there. I'm just going to kind of tear open this packaging here. And then out comes the little screw there. I believe there's another one in there. Yeah, there is. So what these essentially are these are some pentalobe screws. So as you can see there, they are extremely tiny. They're very, very, very tiny. If you can get a nice little look at them there. I'm going to try to make my camera focus here so that you guys can take a look at these little itty-bitty guys. But yeah, essentially they're just pentalobe screws. So they're basically used in the bottom parts of the iPhone. So I'm just going to set those off to the side right there because we don't need those. We already have some pre-installed in our phone. And we're going to take a look at what's in this box. So it looks like that's all that's in that cardboard there. So we can just toss that down there. Now, here comes the actual thing. Looks like this has a serial number and all of that on this side, so I'm not going to show you guys that because I'm sure I'll need that information, and I really don't want you guys to have that information. So, without further ado, I am going to slice this open here, or attempt to, with my little set of tweezers here. Probably not going to get very far, actually. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little spudger here from iFixit, make a nice little gap in the packaging. Or actually, you know what? I probably should just do this by hand. It'll be much safer that way. That way, you know, I won't risk potentially puncturing the battery. Because trust me when I say this, guys, puncturing batteries, especially lithium-ion ones, it is not fun. And I highly suggest that you take all the precautions necessary whenever you're attempting said repairs for lithium-ion batteries. But without further ado, here is the battery. So it is nice and relatively compact. And then, of course, we have all of our stuff here, it looks like. Looks like this is kind of just some adhesive there that we have. Some adhesive for the battery. And it seems like that is all that is included in this box here. So it comes in a nice little plastic sleeve, as you guys can see there. And then, of course, that's just the adhesive. So with all of the adhesive, we're just going to set that off to the side with the adhesive opener right there. The eye opener is also what it's called. And once I also, by the way, attempt this repair, right now I'm recording this first part on my 12 Pro, but once I do start this repair, I am going to be obviously switching over to my iPhone 10. So you guys might see a bit of a quality difference, but I just kind of wanted to explain that now. That way you guys already knew what was going on. And of course, that is the plastic sleeve that the battery came in, so we're going to just toss that aside. And then it looks like right here we have some pre-installed adhesive, and yeah, that's really about it from the looks of it. Wow, this battery is interesting. It's not the L shape that most people are accustomed to. But yeah, so this guy right here is the battery, and it's, you know, it's a battery. But without further ado, we are going to start this repair, so this is where I will cut the recording, and you guys will see it pick up on the iPhone 10. Hey, what's going on, guys? We are now going to start the repair. So, without further ado, let's get out my tools here. So far, we have, as you can see by this top-down view, we have a couple of different things here. We have the phone itself, of course, which, you know, has quite obviously a lot of fingerprints over it and such, and it's all powered off now. We have our SIM card right there, which I've already removed. We have some extra pentalobe screws, which we are now going to remove the pentalobe screws on the actual thing here. So, with doing that, we are now going to need a P2 pentalobe bit. Now, on the iFixit toolkit, if I can properly look for it, we need a bit that says P2. So, these are the T's. The P's are, let's see here. The P's are right here. So if you need like help locating which bit to use, this is going to be the bit right here. This right here is your standard issue P2 pentalobe bit. So this is what will make sure that you use the right bit there. Now we are going to put this in our screwdriver, and like so. Sorry, this looks like this section is a little dirty down here. It's been in the case for a while. We are going to wipe that off real quickly with just my shirt, and then we are going to take out our screws. Now, these are security screws. These are the screws that basically are in there to ensure that everything is in its proper place. So, there's one. And then here's the second one. And as you may also be able to tell, these screws also have a bit of a gasket system to them. And what I mean by that is, upon closer inspection, they have some ringlets on them, basically. What that essentially does there, especially towards the top, what that essentially does there is that allows for the whole phone to maintain its water resistance. Now that that is done, we're going to set the phone aside here, and same thing with the screwdriver, and we are going to go along and label the parts. So I labeled these two up here as extra, because those are just extra pentalobe screws. These, on the other hand, will be our P2 security screws. So they will go in this little section here. That's marked off from the rest. This is just our extra screws, which will go right here. So we are going to mark that as well. That way we can leave some space for any other extra parts that we may have. Now, the next part to this is we need to heat up the bottom of our display panel here in order to remove it. So, in order to do so, I am going to cut the video here, come back once this eye opener is heated up, and then we will set it like so on the bottom of the display. Now, I need to clear my workspace a bit so I have some room. So yep, we just set it there like that on the bottom, and it will heat the display up. So from there, we will proceed. All right, I am back with our heated up eye opener. Now we are going to set it on the bottom of our display there, and we're gonna let it heat up our adhesive and melt it. So we are gonna let it sit here for about a couple of minutes here, and then we are going to afterwards pry up our display and cut all of our adhesive out. That is where the suction cups and our plastic picks will come into play. We're going to use those to slice the adhesive, and we're going to also use those to get all of the excess adhesive that we don't get out. All right, and when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're very, very careful. All right, looks like that is heated up just enough. So now we are going to take our suction cup, not on the very edge, but reasonably so, and we are going to create a gap. Hey guys, so there's a bit of a change of scenery here, but as you guys can see, I have just about gotten out all of the adhesive here. So I just need to go in here, cut out the rest of the adhesive, and then we should all be good. Now, the difficult part is getting this display up. But other than that, cutting out all the adhesive, well, that's also kind of a pain too. But I'll be right back whenever I'm done with that. Alrighty guys, now if you guys will take a look at this, the display is now free from the actual housing. So opening her up, this is the inside of my iPhone 12 Pro. And looking at it, it's very, very interesting just how compact it actually is. Now, as far as the actual battery goes, that is the guy right there. And honestly, I mean, this is insane right here, just how compact this actually is. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But as far as the repair goes so far it's an astounding success. Now, there is some leftover residue of adhesive all along the edge there, as you can see on the inside. So I will have to clean that up with some isopropyl alcohol and reapply the new adhesive tabs, which is right here. So without further ado, I'm going to set my phone up here, if I, can figure out how to do it. Yeah, I'm going to get started with this repair. So give me just a moment, you guys, and I'm probably actually going to change scenery once again. Alrighty, guys, we have our iPhone 12 Pro opened. Now we just have to prop it up and begin the repair. So, in order to initiate this repair, we're going to need to take our screen here, and just like a book, we are going to fold it to the right. That way, we also have our display here being supported upright by our toolkit here. Now, we can actually work on the phone itself. And what we're going to do first is we are going to disconnect some connectors. So, in order to do that, we're going to need some specific bits here. Now, lucky for me, I happen to have all of the bits right here for this job. Now, the tricky part is figuring out which ones we'll actually need. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a moment also to absorb just the beauty of this actual enclosure here, because this enclosure is just really, really awesome, honestly. Like, the way Apple structures their internal components here for their products it's just phenomenal, to be quite honest with you guys. It's really well organized, and it really works well, to be honest. So now that we have our phone open, we are going to now start with this repair. So let's see. We are going to need to first get this panel off. So we are going to need some Y000 bits. So we need to get that. So we have, let's see here. We're going to need to look for the Y000. That's a Phillips. Here we are. Here is our Y000. It's this tiny little guy right here. Has 3 prongs instead of 4, like a Phillips bit. So, without further ado, we are going to now gently unscrew the bracket here. And then, as you can see there, the screw is extremely tiny. It's like microscopic. All right, let's set that guy right off to the side. And then once we are done unscrewing the second one here, we are going to take that bracket off with some tweezers, and we are going to label it. This is the battery bracket. All right, that is labeled, and now what we need to do is we need to grab our ESD safe tweezers right here, and we will need to gently take off the bracket and set it off to the side like so. Okay, now what we will need to do is we will need to disconnect this valley, so to speak, of connectors. So, first off, we are going to disconnect the battery connector first. And the reason we do that is we want to cut off all power to this device. We don't want the display to essentially be shorted out. So we are going to fully and properly disconnect our battery. And there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can take your fingernail and do this, or you can do this with a pointed tip from your tweezers there. I'm just going to do it with my fingernail just because I find that to be the easiest right now. So now that our battery connector is disconnected, we now no longer have to worry about that. Now what we can do is, there's actually a couple of display connectors here. There's the earpiece up here, and then there's the main connector. So the earpiece, we actually don't have to worry about. Now, if you look at the way that the ribbon cable for it is positioned, it is, oh, sorry, my head might be covering there, but it is a very, very delicate connector there, if you guys can see that. But it is extremely delicate and extremely fragile. So that is a cable you do not want to screw with unless you have to. So what we're going to do now is, now that the power is disconnected from the device, we are now going to disconnect the actual display. Now to do that, you can do the exact same thing that I'm doing here by removing it with the tool here, or you can do this with a fingernail. And now that that is removed, now our display is basically free besides the earpiece. Now I say basically because it is essentially free. Now that we have that disconnected, we just have to basically follow along here. So there is now another cable here, unfortunately, so we do happen to have to disconnect these ones as well. So I'm just going to do that real quickly because there are a couple more cables. Okay. And then let's disconnect our digitizer. All right. All 4 cables are now disconnected. All right. Now that we have that disconnected, that is all good. All right. Let's see here. Just gonna make sure that that is free right there. Now, if we take a look at the display here, it is just powering back up. Now we will give it just a couple of moments here. The next cable, while we are actually waiting patiently for this to boot up, the next section we are going to remove here is going to be this bracket right here that I am currently tapping with my spudger here. And as you can see, everything is working as far as input goes. There seems to be no problem here. And voila! Alright, now we are going to shut this down once again. And actually, before we do that, we are going to also just show you Face ID as well, just to make sure that I show you guys everything. And yep, as you can see there, it all works. Alright, we are now going to redisconnect all of those cables and proceed with our repair. Now that those are disconnected, now we can disconnect the cables up here underneath this shield. So in order to do that, we are going to need to unscrew the highway here, or not the highway, sorry, the brackets up here. And this uses the same Y000 bit, so no need to change screwdrivers just yet. And just like the battery connector, the battery bracket, this bracket also has very, very tiny screws. So make sure that you guys have some sort of magnetic mat, like I do right here, that you guys can see off to my right, that you guys are using in order to keep track of these screws. Because the one thing that would really suck the most is losing any one of these screws. The second you lose one of these screws, it is not good. So I highly suggest that you guys keep track of these screws. Now me, I'm actually lucky because I got some extra screws with this battery in case, say, some screws do get lost. Which, knowing me, I will not lose any of these screws because I have a magnetic mat, but it is still nice to have those screws just in case. Okay, now that that bracket is unscrewed, this is the front sensor connector cover, essentially. So this is the front sensor connector bracket that we have to now get off of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up here with my tweezers, and we are going to take off this bracket. Alright, the bracket is now off, and now I'm going to label it. As you can see here, this is another sub-highway of connectors. And by the time we are also done with this, guys, we are going to have a very full magnetic mat. Let's just say that. So now that the front sensor cover is off, now we can proceed to disconnect the front sensors. So, like I said before, this is totally up to you guys, but if you want to use your spudger to complete this, to disconnect these, you can absolutely do so. Now, for me, like I said, sometimes I find it easier using the spudger, other times I find it easier using my fingernail. So in this case, I am going to use my fingernail. You just want to grab that corner there. And with that earpiece speaker, or that earpiece and speaker cable disconnected, the entire display is now separate from the actual body. So I will now set that assembly off to the side, and now we are just left with all of this. So the display assembly is now removed, and we can now proceed to unscrew the loudspeaker, because the only cable we actually had to disconnect was the actual front sensor array there. So that is the only cable we needed to disconnect. Now we can proceed to go down here to our loudspeaker assembly, or our speaker assembly. So, without further ado, we are going to do that. Now, this is going to require us to use a Phillips driver. So we are now actually starting to see some Phillips screws down here, as you can see. So this is going to be our standard one here, our standard Phillips, which I believe is going to be this guy here. Should just be our 00 Phillips. And it indeed is. And even for these screws, as well, as you guys can see, they are extremely tiny. Alright, that is screw number uno. And it looks like we're going to have about 4 of these to unscrew. Alright, let's take that guy off as well. That's screw number 2. Alright, then we have another one right here, screw number 3 right across from it. And as you guys can also see, if you guys can see it off to my right, I'm also placing this. Sorry about that cut there, guys. We are now looking at the speaker. So as you guys can see there, it's actually not that large. It's actually fairly small. And it's quite interesting for the way it works. Actually, right in this little section here, if you guys can see it, there is some little white balls in there, and they're sound dampening balls. So what they basically do is they make the speaker sound much larger than it actually is, which is a very, very interesting tidbit there. What we have to do now, though, is we have to remove the SIM card cover. And in order to do that, we're going to need to go back to our Y000 bit. So let's set our Phillips bit there off to the side and go back to our Y000. And then this will go here under, oops, under SIM card cover. We'll just put that there and mark that initially. And now we are going to unscrew it. And then same thing with these screws. They are absolutely tiny. All right. There we are. And then we are going to take out the bracket with our tweezers, like so. All right, and then once that is removed, then we can disconnect our SIM card reader. And it looks like there is just one connector here that is connecting it. It's a very, very tiny one. All right, now that that is disconnected, we can now unscrew the SIM card reader. So for this, there's actually going to be 3 screws here. And from the looks of it, they're all still Y000. All right. Have one screw there. There's our second screw, And then our final third screw is right here. Alright, now we can carefully and steadily take our tweezers and remove this little bracket here, which sits right below our SIM card reader. Alright, and then we can begin to remove the next set of screws here. So it looks like we have one last screw for our SIM card reader, and that is a standoff bit. Now, before we proceed any further, I'm going to label this. All right. Now we are going to get our standoff, which is this guy right here. It's a nice, elegant screw type. And basically, if you guys don't know what a standoff bit is, it's a screw inside of a screw, if you can imagine it as that. All right, we're going to set that off to the side. And then we are going to remove our SIM card tray. And yep, this is the thing right here, guys, that makes cellular service basically a thing. This SIM card reader right here. So it's a really tiny component, actually. It's really cool, too, actually. We're going to set that right next to our speaker there, off to the side. All right, and then what we are going to do next is we are going to disconnect our Taptic engine, aka our vibration motor. It has a nice little ribbon cable connector right here. So now that that is disconnected, we are going to unscrew our Taptic engine. And it looks like for the Taptic engine, we actually have a couple of different screws here. Now, before we do that and proceed, we are going to label it here. All right, we have that all labeled now. Now we're going to proceed with our task. All right, so there is our first standoff. Oh, by the way, also this thing right here, in case you guys were curious here, this little thing here, this is what's called a SIM pin. What that essentially does is that is what the mechanism is there to release the SIM card and ensure that it works properly. Sorry about that cut, you guys. Now we are going to move on to the Taptic engine here. So now that we have the Taptic engine disconnected, we just have to continue unscrewing it. So without further ado, let's keep on going with that. Looks like we just have a couple of standoffs here. Alright, that's the second standoff. So yeah, it looks like it's just two standoffs and a Phillips. So let's find our Phillips bit. Let's get her on out of there. All right. And now with our tweezers, we can now remove our Taptic engine. It's nice and compact. This is our vibration motor right here. Oh, and I just dropped it. But yeah, so that guy right there, this tiny little thing, is our vibration motor. So that's very, very cool to see there. All right. Now we have to, of course, locate the adhesive pull tabs, which are here and here on the battery. And then we will have to remove the stretch release adhesive. So let's get the tabs, start to peel away at them. And this is most certainly one of the most delicate parts. And with this step, you want to be extremely careful not to puncture the battery. The other tedious element to this is pulling up these battery tabs. Oh, here we go. Of course, now it wants to break on me. What fun. And keep in mind, guys, these battery tabs will most certainly break if you're like me. Alright, that should be the first one. Got all this leftover residue here. Just clean it off of my tweezers. Alright, now let's try to get the next one up here. This is one of the longer tabs. See, that's the most difficult part, honestly, of this whole repair, is getting those adhesive tabs to cooperate. Especially these top ones. Because, see, I could go out on a limb and try to, you know, get this battery out the hard way, but I'd much rather do it the easy way, which is with these pull tabs. Oh, here we go. Starting to get the bottom one off. Alright, there's some more residue. Alright. Oh. Of course. This one wants to be very similar and stubborn. Yeah, see, that's the most difficult part about these, is just finding the right spot to grab onto and then, you know, being able to pull the whole thing out. Because, see, if it were up to me, I would just honestly pry this whole thing out. But, honestly, you cannot do that. So, unfortunately. Oh, here we go. Got the second one out. And she gets stuck to my tweezers, though, unfortunately. Alright, bottom section of the battery is free, so I am just going to be lazy and just pry it up like so. Okay. Alright, battery is finally out, you guys. In the old one, anyways. Alright, now time to get all this excess adhesive out of here, all this old gunk. Let's get this on out of here. The other thing I'll need to do before I also seal this thing back up is clean off the sides and make sure all that other residue is off of there for when I apply the new display adhesive, because there's also going to need to be some new display adhesive that I apply in order for this thing to retain its water resistance. And oh no, I just peeled up on this sticker by accident, but it's not a big deal. It'll be just fine. Okay, that is part of the old adhesive out of there. Now I just need to get all the rest of this gunk out of here. Alright, that is all of the old adhesive out. Now, my job is a whole lot easier. So, this is the old battery right here, as you guys can see. So, I'm going to just set that guy right there. Alright. And now what we're going to do is we are going to install our fresh battery. So, we're going to do that by peeling off this back here. And this adhesive should already be ready. So we're just going to gently set the battery in place. And this new adhesive should already be primed. Alright. Now we're going to take off this protective cover here. And Apple nicely included these pull tabs as well for the cover. Okay, cover is off. New battery is in place. And we should be good. Yeah, that battery is stuck down, so that is that. And what we need to do now is go around the edges here and peel up any old adhesive that we see and get it on out of here. Which so far, guys, I will say, this repair has honestly been really fun to attempt. And, of course, we should see that the phone should boot back up once I am all said and done with this. But as far as everything else goes, really, I mean, it's all actually quite nice as far as the way it's all oriented. And yep, this is the proper way for the adhesive, so now we just have to apply it. And we have to make sure that it goes in properly. Alright, let's make sure that all things are accounted for and seated into position. Now we just have to press this adhesive down, make sure that it's firmly in place. We can just do that with our spudger here. Go around the perimeter, make sure that everything is nice in there. Alright, then after that, we can peel up the next layers. It looks like we have a bit of a loose spot here. Oh wait, never mind. It's all good. Alright. Like I said, just making sure that all of the adhesive is nicely in place. So we can just go over it just one more time. Make sure we get that nice water-resistant seal. Alright, now we peel up. Alright, that is the new adhesive all sat in place, and it looks good. Sat on there nicely. Alright, now we can start reassembling and finish this guy off. So, first order of business is we need to reattach the Taptic engine. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, of course, we need to redo this in the order that we did it initially. So we are basically following our guide here in reverse. So we have a couple of screws here. So first of all, let's reconnect it. Alright, now we can screw things back in. So let's see, we have our Phillips bit. So let's put back in our Phillips screw. And before we close up the phone, you guys, we are going to test all of the functions, just to be on the safe side. That way we don't get any surprises. Okay, standoff screw is in, or standoff screw number 1 anyways. Now we need to put in our second standoff screw. Let's see why it's not. Probably because something is not aligned correctly. Yeah, it needs to be shifted over just a teensy bit. That's standoff in right there. Standoff number 1 Here's standoff number 2. Alright, that is in. Now we just need to put in our Phillips. And that is our Phillips in. So that is our Taptic engine reattached and reconnected. Alright, now we need to reattach our sim reader. Alright, that is back in place. And for this guy, we have a couple of screws. So for this lower section here, we have one standoff, which goes in like so. Actually, let's see. I believe, yeah, just before we remove the bracket, we have a standoff that goes right here. Okay, that's the standoff in. Then, of course, we have the bracket, which, according to me, should be some Y000s. So let's find our Y000 bit and get to work. Alright, here is our first screw here, which goes on the bracket like so. Alright, and then here is our second screw. Just make sure the bracket is lined up in place. And then finally our last screw, which makes sure that our sim reader is in place. Alright, and with that reattached, we can put in our sim tray. Make sure that that fully functions. And it looks like it does. Alright. So, now that that is complete, we can now put the cover back on for the SIM card reader. this, we'll be using the same Y000 bit. So we're basically just doing all of these steps here in reverse. Alright, here is the next Y000. Alright, that is the cover bracket back in place. Now we move on to the speaker. Alright, let's line her back up. Alright, and then for this we will need to switch over to our Phillips driver. Since these screws are all Phillips head. Which are fairly standard and fairly easy to put back together. Alright. Alright, our speaker is now back in place. And it is all screwed together. Now we can put the display connectors back on. Alright, and then just before we're about ready to close up the phone, we are going to test everything and make sure that it all works. But first, before we do that, we are going to prop this guy up here, and we are going to put the cover back on up here. So we are going to need this cover here. Alright, let's see here. We want to make sure that everything is routed correctly. Okay, so now for this front cover here, we are going to need to, let's see here, we're going to need to swap back to our Y000. And then put all of the screws back in place. Luckily, it's only a couple of screws here, so nothing too substantial. Gosh, Okay, display, stop falling over, please and thank you. Alright. We're just about out of the woods, you guys. Alright, that cover is now back on. And now we can reconnect our display cables and then our battery cables. So we're going to go in this order. We're going to connect our digitizer, which I'll need to grab my trusty spudger here. Alright, actually wait a minute, that was the wrong cable to reconnect first. First I need to reconnect this smaller cable. Yep, it goes digitizer, bingo, and then it goes this guy. There we go. Then it goes this cable, battery cable, Alright, that is in. Alright, now before we reattach the battery cover, we are going to power up the phone, see if it turns on. Then after that, we are going to ensure that everything works. And probably from what I am guessing, I'm sure that this battery is either stone dead or it has a little bit of charge in it, but we are about to find out. Worst case scenario, it is dead and we will need to plug it on in, which is probably the case. So let's plug her on in. Okay, looks like we get an instant response. That's a good sign. It is booting up. So we're just waiting at this point. And once this guy powers back up, we are going to make sure that everything works. Alright, touchscreen seems to be working. Sound is working. Okay, looks like we got that non-genuine battery message, so we'll need to recalibrate it. Okay. Touchscreen is working. Sound is working. Volume buttons are working. Let's see. What about vibrations? Yep, vibrations are working. And now let's test our cellular connectivity. Let's put back in our SIM card. Alright, looks like cellular service is working. Let's just ensure that it is. We're on the 5G band. Yep, we are indeed getting cellular service. Awesome. Looks like our battery is at 8%. Yep, all is looking good. Alright, let's unplug it for now. Yeah, everything seems to be working, which is phenomenal. Let's also test Face ID. Yep, Face ID works. Yeah, the whole thing works, you guys. As you can see. Face ID is working, everything is working, as expected. Perfect. So, what we're going to do now is we are going to put the connector, not the connector, the bracket for the battery back in place. We're going to screw things down, and yeah, then we're going to seal our device back up. So, without further ado, let's do that. So, we are going to need to still stay with our Y000 bit. Alright, and then we can seal her back up. Alright. Now we should be good to reseal the phone. Alright. Phone should be sealed shut. I'm not seeing any gaps or anything like that. Since there's no gaps, that is where we are going to end this video. So if you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, also comment and subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. And I really loved doing this repair, so sorry it was super long in post, but yeah, I really loved doing it, and I am probably going to do more repairs like this in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.